Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Long Ways podcast. I'm Devin Windelspecht,
And I'm Michael Windelspeck.
and we are a father-son hiking duo out to hike the great long trails of the world. So this is our much anticipated gear episode. We're going to be talking about all the hiking gear we're going to be using on our next hike. We're going to be talking about what has worked for us in the past, what hasn't worked, and kind of just go step by step into all the gear we have. So we're excited about this one. We've been wanting to do a gear episode for quite a long time. The disclaimer at the beginning, we are actually, none of this is paid for us to say anything about this. This is just stuff we like. It's stuff that we really tried and tested over several hikes and that we personally enjoy using. So that first off, I think the first thing is for people who don't know, what is our next hike? And this will probably be published after the hike is actually done. But what hike are we about to go on?
We are about to leave in a few days for Turkey and the Lycian Way, or
Mhm.
part of the Lycian Way, actually, because come to find out, that's like a 250-mile trail, which is,
Yes.
unfortunately, I can do it. I mean, because I have all the time in the world, but you
Yeah,
guys have jobs and they probably prefer you not be hiking for a month at a time.
exactly.
But this is a big one for us. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's a little shorter than we've taken in the past,
About
but
50 miles this
But
time.
it's going to be really rich in history, which
Yeah.
we're looking forward to, and has a interesting connection back to the Hadrian's Wall hike that I
Hmm.
did this spring, and we'll talk about that some other time. Okay,
Yeah.
but definitely it's going to be a fun hike. It's my seventh, your sixth, and
Hmm.
Eric's fifth.
And this is coming off of, we're not going to go too much into our hike because we're going to have an episode afterwards for sure. But this is coming off of Slovenia, which was a really tough, very rigorous, very technical hike. Absolutely gorgeous, but very, very trying, very exhausting. And this one, I hope and we'll see, is going to be a little bit more like our hikes in Portugal and Ireland, where we are more hiking along the coast, kind of
Yep.
weaving between different small towns, which is kind of the hikes that we like to do on the long ways a lot. Not to say that we won't do some of those more Slovenia hikes in the future, but for now, we're going to take it a step down. We're going to be hiking along the coast of Turkey by the city of Antalya, and we're really excited for it.
Yeah.
So before we get into all this, I think the thing to talk about first is that we have been, like I said, that's done 7 of these. I've done 6. We have learned that packing and getting the gear for your trip, less is more.
Yes.
And I think every time we go on a trip, Dad brings a smaller and smaller bag and still says he's overpacks
Every trip. That's exactly
every
right.
trip.
There's this tendency in the very last day to start throwing stuff in, like, I need 3 more of these. And the
Yep.
reality is you don't.
No.
It just pack simple, pack with good gear. There's a great quote out there. There's no bad weather, only bad gear. And I
Yep.
think that's probably,
Yep.
we've experienced the bad weather and we've gotten better about our choices of gear because of it.
Exactly. Like I travel a little light just in general, but I'm coming in with a duffel bag and like a 30-liter backpack, and everything I'm bringing is just going to be in those 2 things. The duffel bag itself, it's an Eagle Creek duffel bag. It is only about 20 liters, maybe 30. And it's something that can pack down really quick and put into a backpack so that you can come get around a little bit easier because I like to travel after these hikes, travel around Europe. I'm going to be swinging up to Istanbul after this. So it's nice to be able to put that all into a small backpack so that you're not lugging around giant suitcases on trains and planes and everything. But
And
let's get
I think
into
that's really important, though. Hold on with that,
Yeah.
because I think it's a really important thing there, Devin, because one of the things, we don't usually talk about is the gear to get you there. And, most people nowadays will get one of these big wheeling hardcover,
Hmm.
things. And if you're going to be doing a lot of train work, okay, or buses, okay,
Yep.
those things are actually a pain. And some companies, some transfer companies won't even move those anymore. They want the duffel bags or the two-wheeled, carry totes and things like that. And those, get them as small as you possibly can
Yeah.
because you don't, it's just easier that way to do that. Yeah, to get you to the sites.
Yeah. For example, so I have this, I'm holding it right now, this Eagle Creek no matter what duffel bag, which I've had for years. It's a small size. It's about 18 by 12 by 11 inches. That's not technically small enough to fit under your seat, but I've made it work sometimes because it packs down pretty small, about 30 liters. This thing I like a lot because it can fit into another backpack, and then I can kind of take it out as I need to if I need more space or if want to bring more stuff home
Right.
afterwards. But yeah, no, we've kind of realized like those big, heavy suitcases, we don't need them. I think Dad, you do sometimes like a wheeled duffel bag kind of thing
Yep.
sometimes.
Yep.
So everything we're talking about today is something that can fit in about, I'd say about 40 to probably about 50 liters worth of space.
Total.
Yeah,
Total.
total.
Yep.
So if you have a 50-liter backpack, that will fit everything we're talking about today. A small duffel suitcase, or in like my case, the duffel bag plus the about 35-liter backpack.
Right.
So we're going to break this into thirds. This podcast, we're going to talk about clothes and boots at the beginning. We're going to move on to kind of like poles and backpacks and that kind of stuff following that. And then we're going to end with some miscellaneous items that we always bring. Um, so I think clothes are the most important. And we pack differently depending on where we go. And sometimes we do something like Slovenia where we pack for cold weather. And then it's the hottest month they've had on record in Slovenia, and we don't
Yep.
need any of the long sleeves clothes.
Exactly.
So we've also realized that kind of bringing a combination of clothes is important. So Dad, let's start with you. What are you bringing on this trip?
Well, I'm packing, once again, I'm packing fairly light. I've really moved more towards for the shirts and everything, synthetics, for a couple of reasons is mostly because I can wash them on the trail.
Hmm.
The big cotton ones, if you try to wash them, sometimes shirts and things, they don't usually dry as fast as you need them to. But we have these clotheslines now and we can wash them. So my shirts, I really am kind of fond of the Arc'teryx. Okay,
Arc'teryx.
I'm a biologist, and it
Yep.
looks a lot like an Arc'teryx.
It's Arc'teryx. Yep.
Okay, well, see, that's why we don't have any product placement because we
Exactly.
mispronounce the people we're using. But I'm giving them a shout out. But it's really a nice shirt, very light. I usually bring at least one long sleeve, okay, and then a couple short sleeves, shirts. The long sleeve can act since it's light, as a sunbreak too sometimes, which is nice. It's going to be really hot.
Yep.
You can do that, and then over that, usually some sort of fleece, okay, for shirts, just in case we do get those cooler nights. So one of the nice things about having these different types of clothes on any of the trips is you can just start to layer them as you need to. So if you
Yeah.
do hit a little bit of a cooler area, obviously if it's cold, we have heavier gear we bring, but this one's going to be a fairly warm trip. But you still get sometimes some chilly nights or a little bit of weather. So nice light clothes that can be compressed very easily
Hmm.
into basically, the Ziploc bags and pressed down have been amazing for me for shirts.
For
Um,
me, one of my favorites is they are the REI. I think they're called the Sahara shirts.
mhm.
They're very light, very moisture wicking. I probably have like 3 or 4 colors of those that I wear. I usually bring about 3 or 4 good shirts. And of those, one's a long sleeve, and then like 2 or 3 are like a nice like REI Sahara shirt. I will also say that even though Dad's wearing an Arc'teryx today, uh, you don't need like the really high quality stuff for what we do.
Right.
Now, if you're backpacking, the Appalachian Trail or you're, mountaineering or something, that's completely different. But I'm going to be honest here that like I've hiked some of these trails with like a moisture wicking shirt I've gotten from Target.
Right. Of
Like,
course. Yes.
and
Mhm.
you can do that. It's a little bit different with the pants, and we'll get to that. But for like a shirt, if you're looking to reduce your budget, so long as it's moisture wicking, so a good athletic shirt,
Yep.
that's fine to bring. I like the REI Sahara shirts just because they're a little bit more comfortable. Some of like the synthetics I'd wear just for running, they're not just as comfortable for hiking long distance. But yeah, moisture wicking, make sure like don't go just get like a cotton shirt because it will stick to you. You'll get, chafing, you'll get rashes. So make sure something that's moisture wicking. The other things I really like is I like these little, also again from REI, they're like these little half zips and you can like put them over your shirt really easily. They can compress down really easily. And I found those really good both to act as like if it's a little colder in the morning, put that on, but also to act as a windbreak for a lot
Right.
of places.
Yep.
So if we're in a place where we're up in the mountains or we're by the coast and there's just a lot of wind and that wind chill's hitting you, I found that acts as a really good windbreak. And it's just enough so that you're not getting chilled by that wind, but you're not like overheating from having like you know a really heavy jacket on or anything like that.
Yeah, I think that, to be honest with you, I'm going to give a big shout out to REI in general. It's a good point, Devin. When I mention some of the things I buy, it's mostly because of fit,
Hmm.
or personal preference. But often when I go, the REI, even the REI co-op work,
Yep.
all their equipment is absolutely fantastic. You'll hear me mention it time and time again. So for our types of hiking, which is the long distance, the non-technical stuff, okay, and supposedly we're not supposed to be in weather extremes, although we seem to find the extremes no
Yep.
matter what. Their gear is absolutely fantastic for most types of hiking. So when I mentioned something, it's just because for some reason I like the feel of it, or it fits me better than
Hmm.
a standard off the rack type thing.
So like, yeah, going back to it, I usually bring about 3 or 4 shirts, which is a little bit more than you need to, but I like having the ability to kind of change out. Also, it's nice to like with photos to not have the same shirt over and over. Also, with photos, it's actually worth saying that like a nice bright shirt, like a nice yellow or red, really pops out in photos. So that's something to consider too. But if you're really into like the getting like pictures of yourself on the trail. When it comes to pants, I use these stretch Zion pants from REI. They're probably one of my favorites. I usually bring about 2 pairs of those, and they also have a shorts version of them. I usually bring a pair of shorts too. I really like them because they're lightweight, but
Mhm.
they're kind of thick enough that I've used them with like rain and torrential downpours and stuff and haven't gotten soaked through with them.
Mhm.
So I actually have to go back to REI and buy another pair because they can wear out after a lot of trips and like you just get like holes in them and that kind of stuff. But the one I'm replacing right now, that one has been on about 3 or 4 hikes with me, and I'm only just now having to replace it. So they're also pretty durable. So the stretch Zion pants, that's my favorite pants. Do you have a favorite?
Yeah, I do. I usually often use the REIs too, and one of the reasons why I use the REIs is, first of all, they fit nicely. They really do.
Hmm.
Second of all, they're a lot cheaper. So when we've slid down mountains and turned ourselves into giant clay,
Yep.
nothing's ever going to come out of it. You feel a little bit more relaxed about losing a $65 a pair of
Yeah,
pants than a
exactly.
$120 pair of pants.
Yep.
But I've done the same thing. I think I've learned from you with this. I've actually started to buy some of the Prana.
Prana is very good too.
Yeah, they're really good. They're expensive. They wear really, really well, and I like traveling in them. And then it doubles as a heavier weight uh, a hiking pant too. Like you said, I have the lightweight ones, which is what I usually wear,
Hmm.
and usually have a pair of shorts as well. Although many of the REIs you can easily convert them back and forth. They have the zippers.
I do need to fact check myself. I just looked it up. The stretch Zions are actually Prana. You're right. They're not
Okay.
REI.
I thought so.
So, yeah, Prana. Yes, 100% Prana. I love the stretch Zions. They have a lot of other versions too, but those are my favorite pants. They're only about 60, 65 bucks, like you said.
Yeah.
They're really comfortable.
Hmm.
They come in with like I like the ones that have like the pockets on the side, but I usually also I'll bring a version that's just straight legged. It doesn't have any of the pockets and stuff too, because what I like about those is they look like regular pants. So if
Yeah,
I'm going
exactly.
into like, I'm swinging by Switzerland or I'm swinging by Paris afterwards, I don't want to look like I'm just a hiker wandering around. I can throw those on, throw on a nice shirt on top,
Yep.
keep my boots because they just look like black shoes. Um, and you just it doesn't look like you're just like a mountaineer walking around the
Right.
city.
Exactly.
Um,
I was gonna say the same thing. Those pants can double definitely for a dinner out at night. I mean,
exactly.
they're just that versatile. The other ones are hiking pants, and they're great. They get wet, they dry. You can
Yep.
get dirty, but these are nice. I'm really very fond of them. Mhm.
Real quick, just regarding underwear, get hiking underwear.
Yes.
Ex officio, pretty good. I like the briefs, mostly for chafing
Yep.
purposes. Everyone has style, it's fine. Get hiking underwear. Don't go with cloth underwear. That is
Oh,
a absolute must. Absolute
absolutely.
must.
You have to. Not only that, you're gonna want to be able to wash those,
Yep.
and not travel with a lot of them, and they dry really quick.
Hmm.
The synthetics, you can hang them almost in any environment, and they're gonna be dry in the morning. It's just amazing how fast that you can wash.
Yeah, and like to talk about like the kind of the more taboo subject here. A lot of people will want to bring like 5 or 6 pairs, one for each day. It's up to you. If that's how you prefer them, that is fine. You don't need to with hiking underwear. It's meant to be able to be worn a couple days in a row. Some people are going to find that icky. So if you do, you can spend the money
Well,
to buy one for each day. But they're also meant to be like washing everything like the shower and stuff like that. So that's also a way that you can.
And it comes down to weight. We have a very limited amount of room for weight. There's always
Mhm,
gear that you have to bring. And, if you can cut a little bit out here and there, you can bring something else. So,
exactly.
yeah.
Um, I think the last thing here when we're talking about clothes, I mean, rain jackets. I have a Columbia rain jacket.
Yep.
I like it a lot. I also use it. I've used it a lot as a windbreak. So I almost always bring it on a trail, even like the one we have upcoming isn't expecting a lot of rain, but one, you want it in case you do. And two, again, just as a windbreak, I've used it a lot, like up in the mountains to just like, I was doing it in Slovenia where we were on top of the peaks and it was hot because of the sun, but I needed something to keep that wind off me. And the rain jacket really helped.
I use Patagonia. That's my favorite at the moment. I found that with Patagonia that the inside lining stays intact a little bit longer than some cheaper
Hmm.
brands and doesn't flake off as easy. I really like it for exactly the same reasons. I don't even know the style of this, and I looked it up before we came here today, but when we were on the Dingle Way, on this talk about roller coaster of weathers, right?
Yep.
One day we were almost lost me to hyperthermia, and almost 2 days later, almost lost Eric to hypothermia, and we had to
Yep.
go back into Dingle to get
Yep.
insulated rain gear. Whatever those are, they have no label on them, but they are one of the most best insulated. A set of insulated. If it's going to be chilly, and you're type of person who their legs get cold,
Hmm.
you get weird, okay, or have problems with body temperature. Insulated rain gear is not bad. However, make sure you need it because it's heavy. Okay,
Hmm.
you get stuck lugging it all over the place. So we actually have both versions. I will travel with Patagonia this time, mostly once again as a light windbreak in case we need it,
Yeah.
either before or also before and after the trip.
So which brings us down to socks and boots.
Yeah, yeah,
Socks, go for Darn Toughs. Um,
absolutely.
some people like Smart Wools. I like how the Darn Toughs have the padding underneath them. There's like a couple different versions. You'll see one that says like hike trek. That's the one you want. It
Right.
comes in. I like the boot height, but it does come in smaller heights. Just get Darn Toughs.
I,
Like I
I,
can't.
I, I will say this pitch for Smart Wools and tell people one of the big things about socks is you really have to. I mean, you'll hear people talk about getting into your boots and everything. I found it's mostly getting into your socks. Okay.
Mhm.
You get to feel how your socks feel inside your boot. Okay. And what type of hike you're on. Smart Wools are great socks. Okay. If you need extra cushion, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Darn Toughs have the more heavier, the lighter, the mediums. And they're also basically indestructible. I know that the
Yeah.
name says it. And you can wear them and wear them and wear them. And
I mean,
they're
I have
not
a
the type
pair I
that feel
still
icky
use.
after a day or two. They're fine.
Yeah, I have a pair I still use back from when I first like was hiking in Colorado when I was 18. So they're 10 years old and they're still going well.
Yep.
I actually the only time I had to buy new Darn Toughs is because I lose one of the two of a pair. That's the only
Exactly.
time.
Yeah. Exactly. Yep. They're amazing. They're amazing. So, but socks are very important that you match them up really well with your boots because boot sizes are really tough. You have to find the boots you like. It's
Hmm.
like a pack, and when you find them, you're going to find the socks that fit your foot in that boot the best.
Yep.
I know some people are going on a long distance hike coming up in November, and they're not wearing their boots. They haven't bought their socks yet. And I'm like, you need to be out on the trail now, and with the socks and the boots to feel hot spots, right?
Yep.
My toes are jammed.
Hmm.
I wear this size, but now my toes are jammed. Well, you need to come back on your sock, and there's a lot going into that, and there's a lot of really good articles out there about choosing socks, and but we always go with Darn Tough. I think it's one of our
Yeah.
standards that we
Yeah.
use.
Agreed. Which brings us to boots. I
Oh,
have right here. These are the ones I brought to Slovenia. They're the Solomon Cross Treks.
uh-huh.
I really like them. I've gone through a couple of pairs of boots throughout all of our trails. The first like trail or two I did, I was wearing like these big, heavy, like backpacking boots. And we're not bringing these 60, 70 liter backpacks on our backs. So you don't really need those for these kind of trips. I've gone through a couple since then. I really like the cross hike twos from Solomon. Solomon in general is just really good.
Mhm.
Um, I don't have anything bad to say about these. I think they're really nice. They're kind of ankle. They're supportive on the ankles. They are very breathable. I think they're still Gore-Tex though, so they're waterproof. The only thing I found about them was when I was hiking Slovenia, because the way I walk, when I was carrying like a heavier load on my back, it was kind of pinching me in the back of the foot,
Mhm.
and it was kind of causing a little bit of kind of rubbing there, which kind of over time really irritated me. So I wouldn't use these for another trip like Slovenia, just because even though it has good support on the ankles, it's not like a big hiking boot. So if you have like a decent pack on your back, like you're carrying 30, 40 pounds, it's just the pressure kind of like hits the back of your foot. But otherwise, I really like these. I would recommend the cross hikes. Dad, what ones are you using coming up?
I'm now almost completely Solomon.
Yep.
I've really fallen in love with that. Once again, I've used other brands and I'm not going to knock them. I think they were really good,
Hmm.
but you know, I've had a couple of things happen with the double knee replacement. The way I walk is completely different,
Yep.
so therefore I had to shift from that. And also going towards a lighter weight boot that still provides you with protection and comfort. I have both a mid, the mid boot size, okay, and plus I have a set of low Solomons, and they are absolutely amazing. They wear great.
Hmm.
They're comfortable. I always buy a size bigger, okay, than my actual shoe size, which means that I'm now wearing like a size 14, which means they you just mail me the box. Okay, I can put a shoe ties around the outside of it. And you go, here you go. But the reason why is you're putting those socks in there, and plus your feet do swell.
Yep.
Okay, and the last thing you want is hot spots on your feet. Okay, because we've all played that. We'll probably have a first aid. We probably should have a first aid episode at some point and
Yep.
talk about what some of the tricks we've learned. But now I'm completely Solomon's. If we need a water shoe, I have a Keen that I use, which is like a
Yep.
water shoe. But mostly I use that if I'm in like Belize or something where I know I'm going to be in a lot of water. But absolutely fantastic with it. Once again, get your feet in them with the sock. And like Devin was saying, try to hike all different types of terrains. Just going out and hiking the Greenway and say, yeah, I can do 15 miles in the Greenway. Well, chances are it's not going to be that.
Yep.
When I was in Hadrian's, I had long stretches which were very flat. It's England, okay, and then at portions of the Hadrian's Wall path, it did get a little bit more rocky.
Yep.
And what was nice about having the two sets of boots was the days which I knew I was flat walking, right? I just put on the lower Solomons, and it was
Hmm.
wonderfully comfortable, and they weren't and the days I knew I was going to need some support a little bit more for my ankles, or I just had the other pair. So I always travel with two pairs. It is a weight thing. It
Yeah.
is okay, but I'm happy with it, and it
I
works.
I don't travel with two pairs, but what I do because when you're at like your bed and breakfast or you're at town or whatever, it can be a little annoying to like lace up your boots every time or
Okay.
put on these big heavy boots like when you're just trying to like, you know, walk down to the kitchen or something. So I usually tell people to bring like a very light pair of like Chacos are good,
Mhm.
Tivas.
Yep.
They're called Havaianas. They're a Brazilian brand of just like flip flops.
Right.
Something really light that you can just throw in your backpack or you can just like even put on the outside of your bag or something. Just bring that. You're going to thank yourself later for having those kind of shoes that you can just walk around town with instead of these big heavy boots that you're putting on and off just all the time.
And your
Um,
feet, your feet won't scream at you when you go to dinner and you try to put your boots back on, and
exactly,
it becomes a
exactly.
wrestling match. And what
Yeah.
as they're screaming not to go back into the boot after a 15-mile day. Yeah, so I agree. Yep.
So I think we're going to do a quick break right here and we'll be back.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to our podcast. As you can tell, hiking the long trails is definitely something we love to do, even when we don't always do it well. Our real passion is wildlife conservation. Each of us is involved in a greater adventure. As scientists, journalists, and educators, we invite you to check out our Inspired Adventures podcast. Here you'll learn about our adventures in Belize, working with jaguar conservation, water quality, turtle projects, student research, and also some truly inspiring animals. I hope to see you there.
Okay, and welcome back. So we're gonna get into the second part of our gear, which is backpack pulls, that kind of like more like hard, not clothes, but like the stuff you're bringing with you in your backpack that's not clothes, pretty much.
Perfect.
So let's start with the backpack itself. What do you bring on this trip, Dad?
Once again, I have fallen in love with the REIs. Okay.
Hmm.
I've used Ospreys. Okay. I like them. There's nothing wrong with them. But I have a collection of backpacks now, which I've worn.
Yep.
I never thought I'd actually say this, and I'm not talking about like school backpacks, but I have things which are from the bigger sizes, which we need in Slovenia because we were
Hmm.
hut hiking, or most of us were hut hiking.
Yep.
Okay. But then also the smaller ones, like almost like day packs.
Yep.
I have fallen in love with the REI ones they're the 32 liter,
Yep.
okay, and they have the hip supports on the side now. It used to be that some of the REIs didn't have that, and it was just all the weight was then on your back.
Yeah.
But for these other ones, it had the hip supports on either side. And I think Devin and I actually have the exact same pack now, in
Yep.
the same color. So this should be fun. But once again, a really durable pack, easy to get things in and out of, which is what I like about it. Okay. They're water resistant usually, but they usually come with, mine has a rain cover on it.
Yep.
If not, you can get a cheap rain cover. Don't make the mistake of packing the rain cover in the bottom of the pack like I've done in the past. Okay. It should be
Yeah.
packed at the top of the pack because when it rains,
Yep.
Scotland taught me about how fast you have to be able to change in and out of rain gear.
Yep.
Okay. Sometimes several times an hour, depending on what you were doing, right? But yes, I would say for me, the REI packs have been amazing, and I can't say enough good things about them. I'm traveling with them again this time.
Yeah. I mean, so I think Dan and I are taking the same one. It's a Osprey, not Osprey, REI Traverse 32.
That's it. Yep.
So depending on what you're doing again. So last time I was hiking Slovenia, I had a 40 to 45, I believe.
Mhm.
It was an Osprey.
Yep.
Um, don't remember the exact brand, but it was an Osprey 40 liter. I liked it. I really like Osprey. I use Osprey a lot for more backpacking kind of things.
Mhm.
For what we're doing, I don't think you need to spend the money on the Osprey. I would if you were backpacking, you just need something that's going to really, like you're doing Colorado Trail, you're doing the Appalachian Trail, you're doing maybe even the Camino, that's going to be on your back that you're kind of like living out of. Um, but for what we do, I think the REIs are good. 32 is a little bit on the large side of what you need. I've done these with anything from like a 20 liter up.
Mhm.
I find something around 25 to 30 is probably the best. And then just because you can fit in water, you can fit in food, you can fit in all the kind of miscellaneous things you want. And you're not kind of like wanting for space. If you're someone who is good at packing or you like being minimalist, you can go with like a 20-liter one with one of these, especially because the way we do it is that we have our bigger bags shipped from place to place.
You did
Um,
it's a small one in Mont Blanc the first time, which
mhm.
worked out really well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was like a flash 20-liter or something in Mont
Yep.
Blanc.
I
The
ended up carrying
only,
it, and you carried mine.
yeah,
We switched. We made about a half mile into the trail, and I realized that I wasn't going to carry this. You were.
yeah,
But the flash was wonderful for me. Thank you.
yeah, no. I think the other thing about this is that if you aren't doing what we do, where we ship our bigger bags between places, you're going to need something bigger. I would say probably at least a 40-liter,
Yes, absolutely.
just for clothes, really. And there are people who do that hike the trail and they just keep everything on their back. This is what I did when I was in Slovenia. I had a 40 or 42 and it worked really well. But for what we do the 32 liters, usually about 28 to 32 liters.
Yep.
That works really well for us.
Make sure
Um,
you have the internal place for an internal reservoir too, especially when you're
yep.
making the long way hikes. Water is, yeah, I'm sure we'll get to some water things here in a second, but water is so important. And the way those packs are built, when you have a 3 liter of water inside of you, that's a bunch of weight. And having it sit right up against your back like that it almost takes it out of the equation.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have water bottles dangling around all over the place, you can feel the drag on that after some miles. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about water real quick. I
Okay.
mean, so for me, I bring about a 2 to 2.5 liter water reservoir that has the hose that can come out. I think that's like kind of a necessity. For some reason, Eric doesn't use those, and I think he's an idiot for it. But because there's something about,
Eric doesn't eat or drink. We don't
yeah.
he starts hiking and 15 miles later he stops hiking.
Yep. There's something about like this when you're feeling tired and stuff to be able to just really quickly have a drink of water without having to put your pack down and everything. That just helps so much in these trails. Get a reservoir.
Yep.
Um, they're not too expensive. They come in
No.
anything from 1 liter, which is a little small for me because then you're just refilling it a lot, to up to 3.5. I like about 2 to 2.5 personally,
Yep.
because then depending on the day, I usually bring 2 water bottles. Usually only one of them will be filled. The other one is there in case we know we're going on a long stretch where our guidebook or whatever will say there's not a lot of water on the
Yep.
stretch.
And we have one coming up on this next trip where that will be one of the days where we will
Yep.
be water heavy. Yeah.
Um, a
I've
quick
got
a quick reminder is that every liter of water is 2 pounds.
right.
So at the beginning of the day, you can really feel that water on your back.
Yep.
So it's also a weight thing where if you're carrying, 3 liters of water, that's 6 pounds on your back. You can really feel that. If you're carrying 4, that's 8. That's a dumbbell on your back, really.
Yep.
So just keep that in mind that if you are worried about it, go for more water. You would rather have more weight than not enough water.
Yes.
But I usually find hitting the trail with at least 3 liters on your back is, for me, a good amount.
I think so too. I usually carry a little bit more. I go through a lot. I'm a little bit of a bigger guy. I go through a
Hmm.
lot more water. Luckily, I've lost a bunch of weight because of all this hiking. So I think that'll help a lot. But yeah, having a decent amount of water is probably one of the most important things for these long hikes, mostly because follow your guidebook, like you said. They will tell you what the distance is going to be. Okay. And then adjust as needed, depending
Hmm.
upon the weather. If it's going to be hot or windy, you're going to lose things quick, which brings me though to electrolytes.
Yeah.
We were not electrolyte people in the beginning. And in Scotland, we finally had to buy electrolytes. We ended up buying basically like almost like a Pedialyte
Yep.
from a dispensary there, or pharmacy. They're called dispensaries there. And now we use Noons, and they are probably, if you sometimes you think you're thirsty, you're not as thirsty as you are. You're craving the electrolytes.
Yep.
I love Noons. They come in all different flavors. I don't go for all the immunity support, or
And they're kind
caffeinated.
of like a dissolvable tablet you put in your water.
Exactly. And what I usually do is I'll drop one into the reservoir, right? And then my side ones will just be to replenish my reservoir, right? And I
Hmm.
just have one Noon for the day, and you feel the energy difference in drinking, and they're not obnoxious with their taste. They're very light. If you
Yep.
dissolve it in 2 or 3 liters, it just takes away that plasticky taste that sometimes you get from
Yep.
carrying water when it gets warm. And we
Y-
bring them everywhere now. I bring them hiking now. My REI water bottle, I always drop one in. Okay,
Yep.
put some ice in. I carry it around for the day. It's really beneficial. Very light. I love them.
Quick aside for a little trick I found about water bottles too. Get a few carabiners. I usually hike with, I have like this old Swiss water bottle that I've had on every hike that's kind of like a memento now. I don't want to lose it because now it's been on every hike. So bring some carabiners and use that to clip into like the straps of your backpack with your water bottles. That helps a lot just to not lose those. I've lost water bottles on the trail a lot. Otherwise, I mostly use just now, James. Like you don't need to be super fancy about these things.
Mm,
Um, which brings us to poles. Dad and I both hike with poles.
yes.
Again, Eric does not. I don't understand it. But what kind of poles do you use, Dad?
I am almost exclusively now using Black Diamonds.
Yeah.
And I have used the REI brands and I really do like them. Okay. However, like I said, I'm pretty big. I can put a lot of pressure onto some poles.
Hmm.
And so I have found that the Black Diamond poles, ultra light, okay, so they're almost so light you think there's no way these things are going to support. I used my poles for a lot. I put them through a lot because it's not just helping me, it's also setting my pace.
Yeah.
And when you get tired, when you're hiking these long distances, as those of you who are listening know, you can actually switch to your upper body and have your upper body kind of
Hmm.
push you and give your legs a little bit of a break. And Black Diamond, they're just amazing. They're just straight Black Diamonds. They're not any special version of them. Uh, I like them.
I mean, I'm the other way around. I have these, I think they're Eatons or Eastons or something that I've had since I was 18 in Colorado. They serve me through anything. They're about as basic as a pole can get. They're just, you put them on the ground and they support you. And they've never failed me. I think some people like springs in theirs. Dad and I typically don't because we like to be able to put pressure on it. Especially if you're trying to pivot your way, you're going downhill and you're trying to like use it as support. I usually use poles for two things. I use it as a way to set pace, which is why I like them even on like flatter hikes we do. If you're doing like mountains, you kind of just need them because you need them to be able to support yourself and push yourself up, or especially on the downhills to be able to support yourself as you're coming downhill. That on our last hike, Eric, who doesn't typically use them, actually needed the poles because of our downhills. You really need them to be able to support yourself. So I'd really recommend poles. The one thing about poles is that they are not allowed on planes, which I'm running into right now. So you need to be able to check
As
them
a
in a bag.
carry-on. Right. Right.
Yeah. You can check them, but you can't put them in as a carry-on.
Right.
So if you're going ultra light and you just want to put something on a plane, I am doing the thing where I'm putting a checked bag of stuff that if it doesn't need to arrive on time, it doesn't. And that's my poles. And then I'm bringing my normal backpack as a carry-on with everything I do need to start the trail at the beginning. And that's important too, that you kind of have something like that because luggage can get lost and being able to hit the trail, have all your essentials to hit the trail right away is important. And if you don't have like your poles or something like that for a day or two, and you're like, okay, I can just do like a day or two hiking without them, that's fine.
Yeah.
Um,
Also, if you're going to have one of the things I always recommend to people is that you do get one of those small multi-tools, because with
Hmm.
any type of pull, sometimes you have to go ahead and tighten them. A special word of note, though, okay, the multi-tool is also not allowed onto.
Exactly.
I don't know how many TSA checkpoints in Europe now have a multi-tool of mine, because they
Yep.
go through and they're like, you can't have this. I'm like, I
Yep.
forgot it, because they're so small now. I mean, they're really,
And you
so
just throw them in your
definitely,
backpack and you forget about them.
if they're forgotten, but obviously X-rays don't,
Yep.
they don't forget them. And so I keep losing them. Nothing fancy, but have it, because you'll be surprised, even with great brands, jarring and stuff like that gets a little loose, right?
Hmm.
I get in there, just tighten it up just a little bit, gives you that sense of security. So definitely a small multi-tool for the whole trip. I mean, for the team.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And it's helpful for me because sometimes mine can, like the joints on them get a little loose and you just got to tighten them up so it doesn't collapse on you. What I want to talk about is like the miscellaneous stuff we bring. So we've talked about clothes, we've talked about backpacks, we've talked about boots and poles, all the big things people think about when hiking. But I feel like there's a lot of small stuff that you don't typically think about that you should bring. Um, Something I bring, this is more for me. I bring a small water filter. You don't really need it for the town to town hiking, but it makes me feel a little bit better.
Yep.
So that if we're ever in a position where I just need to sit down and just like it's a quick squeeze one. It's not, nothing heavy duty, nothing I'd bring like backpacking if I really just needed it, needed to be pumping water every day. But it helps me to be like, okay, we can go to a stream and pumps like, you know, a Nalgene full of water if we really need it.
Yep.
I've never personally used it on a trail, but I like and it's light and I'll take like the couple ounces.
I
The
do the same. It's a life straw, though. It's a
Yeah.
thermos, small life straw thermos, same type of thing. They say you can dip it almost in anything, and it's safe to drink. And never used it. It's been in every single pack.
Yep.
Okay. Yep.
I don't typically bring gloves. The only time we really kind of needed gloves was in Ireland where we got really chilled. I typically don't bring them, but you can if you feel like you're going to be like up in the mountains more, especially in the morning. One thing I bring a lot is I bring a very, very, very small travel sized sewing kit.
Hmm.
And the reason for this is for blisters. Kind of the a method I learned it way back in Colorado, is when you have blisters at the middle of the night, you take a needle, sanitize it, usually with like a wet wipe or like hand sanitizer, put it through the top of the blister, not the bottom, just the very top, run a thread through it, leave the thread in overnight, and the blister kind of
It's amazing.
it comes down into a callus instead of a blister. It's been the number one way I have dealt with blisters throughout all my hikes. Um, Bring a small sewing kit. It's the number one thing I tell people, and every time I tell people about this, they're always like, "Oh, this has saved my life on the hike." First aid kit necessary because of what we do. Where we're relatively close to towns, we don't bring like a massive first aid kit. Just something that has like I have like an ultralight watertight medical kit from REI, something that you can band-aid up or
Yep.
whatever. Just if in case
Has some
like
mosquito minifrin in it. Has some anti-diarrhea medicine in it. Just
yeah,
the little things that which you can always get in the next town, but
yeah.
not when you're 6 miles in. Right.
Exactly. And again, if I was backpacking, I would have something a lot more heavy duty.
Hmm.
But because we're so close to towns when we're hiking, I think I brought something a little bit more heavy duty also in Slovenia. You don't need something that big, just something that you can like put some first aid on. And yeah, so always bring a first aid kit. I mean, even day hiking, bring a first aid kit. It's
Right.
just you're gonna want it.
Yep.
What else? I put it in my first aid kit. I usually get a pack of moleskins for blisters.
Yep.
That's a really good idea. I need to buy some more REI actually coming up. Those just help a lot for the rubbing, especially with the shoes. What else? What are the miscellaneous things?
Well, one of the things that I do inside the pack, it's going to sound crazy, but I use the dry sacks. And there's two different types of dry sacks. One which just keeps everything completely dry that folds over, and there's some which are just like more cinch sacks, okay, or
Yeah.
stuff sacks. Um, I do it for a couple of reasons. One, it does, even though if you have, we've been in some pretty bad rain, and even a rain cover wasn't going to stop us from
Yep.
getting soaked. And it's nice to be able to like put your wallet, your keys, things you don't
Yep.
want to have on you in there. Mine are actually different colors. So I know if I need to grab something, I just need to go in there and grab the yellow one, because the
Yep.
yellow one has, food, a couple snacks in it, right? Okay. Or the blue one has in it the medical stuff. Okay.
Yep.
And I just stuff them all the way in the bottom, and it just makes it so easy to have them, and they're light, and then use them as organizers. I always carry a small section of rope. Okay, usually the parachute cord, the
Hmm.
survival cord. It doesn't have to be anything ridiculous because once again, we're not trying, well, except for Slovenia. Okay, we shouldn't be trying to to rappel down mountains and things like that. But it is useful. If somebody gets hurt or something, you can make a splint with it.
Yep.
Or if something fails, like a strap or something, which has never happened, but you never
Yeah.
know. You can we can go ahead and put something together. All these things are little things, and a lot of them are just peace of mind. Just
Hmm.
knowing that it's there. I do have a nice knife that I carry.
Yep.
Okay, I don't go out for the whole crazy multi-tool thing because, as I said, I have a multi-tool which I have
Hmm.
a screwdriver on it, but I have a very nice knife. And be honest with you, it's usually been used for food prep.
Yep.
Like I wish we had a knife to, cut up this apple. And I'm like, well, we have a knife, and
Yeah,
it's never that
exactly.
we've actually needed a knife. Okay. But
Yeah.
it's always, and it's just, once again, something you cannot, obviously you cannot have on you unless you're packing a bag. Airlines don't like knives
Yep.
or holes, multi-tools. We can
Yep.
tell you why as we've littered the continent with these things, it
Yep.
seems. Um, so those are my big ones. I also usually we didn't really talk about it, but I usually keep in there at least one or two different types of hats. One has a brimmed hat because I like keeping the heat off my neck. Okay.
Hmm.
Uh, I usually carry at least a bandana or two. Okay. I've used washcloths for the longest time, which work, but this year I'm going more to bandanas because it also allows me to put a little sunscreen on or use it as a sweat rag if I want to.
Yep.
All these things are really easy compactable, can be
Yep.
pushed down there. And then of course, your rain gear's in there and maybe, just maybe, depending on how wet you think it's going to be, a change of socks,
Yep.
if you need it. But most days, if it's going to be dry, I don't bother with that either,
Yeah. The only other thing I bring is I bring a portable charger
Yes.
just for your
Yep.
phone. Again, we go between towns a lot, so it's not a huge deal, but it's peace of mind.
We've
Um,
we've tried using the solar ones, and there is something to be said for them, but I really think that the bricks now, the
yeah.
small chargers have gotten so compact and light. Gone are the days where they were almost a pound a piece and had one
Hmm.
charge on them, and what you're really looking for is charge your phone overnight, obviously, okay, and then put it into airplane mode because
Yep.
and all trails and everything else now, and all of Max Adventures things are all GPS driven. We don't have to have a signal, and it stops it from losing the battery. But then that you could reconnect and get at least two full
Yep.
charges left, and in case of an emergency at night, even if you didn't use it, plug it back in again,
Hmm.
right? Just to make sure it's fully charged. I carry one of those. Same thing. It just sits in there and rarely need it, but once in a while.
I mean, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, I bring, a hat too. Normal stuff, bring your sunscreen. Definitely wear
Buffer
sunscreen on the
zone.
trail. Bug spray. Um,
Unless, of course, we're traveling with Eric. So
yes,
if you are around a long ways with us, you don't need to bring any bug spray because all the bugs will go to Eric.
yeah, exactly.
We've actually seen this happen where he comes over and goes, "These guys, these things are eating me alive." And we're like, "What are you talking about?" He was like
Exactly.
covered, and this was in Ireland. No, this was in Scotland. Sorry, when he was covered in these like black bugs. I
Hmm.
thought, that's really weird. And then we realized that midges, you just send them ahead of you, and they just flock to him. So he's great. So if you can find an Eric to travel with, you can keep a little bit of extra bug spray off.
I mean, I'm trying to think of anything else that we need. I bring a knee brace. But I think that's about it. I
That's
mean,
about it. Yeah.
every trail is different when you're hiking something like, Scotland, Ireland, more rain gear. You're going to need maybe even rain pants.
Yep.
Slovenia, I needed, I thought I would need a little bit more cold weather gear. It didn't turn out that way. But normally when you're hiking the Alps, even this summer, you need something that's, like a base layer at least. Um,
In Mont Blanc, Devin, we really, you were facing these big climbs every day, and when you were down in the hut or the the Airbnb, the bed and breakfast, it was warm. But when you got up to the top of those saddles and there was the breeze coming off those
mhm.
glaciers there, it got chilly
Yeah.
fast. Okay, so having layers, no matter what day it is, having the ability to layer up or down.
Yep.
Okay. And so you don't have to pack your pack full. Okay, at all. Okay, but you need to have enough stuff to get the 15 or so miles, 15, 16, 20 miles you're going to go that day.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's it. We'll update you guys if there's any changes or anything we thought we should have brought in our next episode, where we'll talk about hiking the Lycian Way. But until then, I'm Devin Windlespect.
And I'm Michael Windlespect.
And this is the Long Way Podcast. Thank you for listening.